Welcome on behalf of Dallas College and the sustainability team. My name is Faye Davis, and I will be your host for this webinar. I would like to introduce Lori Delacruz Lewis. She is the Assistant Director of Sustainability of Education at Dallas College, and the topic she will cover is recycling. Do you know what to throw and why?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. Happy America Recycles Day, one day late. Yesterday, November 15th, was America Recycles Day. And actually, it started as Texas Recycles Day back in the mid-1990s. So the day has been around for a really long time. So I just wanted to give you some information that I hope will help you. This is a really big topic. So it's not just about, oh, what do you put into your bin, but we're going to cover so much more. But the good news is that I will be able to share this presentation with you at the end, and you can go through all the links and play with all the things that I'm going to share with you. So hang on and we will get started. So I don't know if you hear a lot about recycling in the news, but in my world, so my background, I got my start in the environmental field in the garbage industry, and I taught a lot of waste minimization classes to neighborhood associations and Girl Scout troops and Boy Scout troops and church groups and things like that. And that was back when it was the mid-90s, and the recycling was really very, very basic. There were just a few things you could put in your bin, but you had to go to some extremes, like you had to take the wrapper off of the steel metal can, things like that. You don't have to do those things anymore. But the problem is that I'm not sure if it's the government, the municipal governments, or whether it's the industry who said, give us more, give us more. But most of that stuff is actually just garbage. And it is making the cost of recycling increase by a lot. So we've been working on a project here in the Dallas-Fort Worth region called Do You Know What to Throw? And part of that initiative is educating people to pull it back, dial it back, and just do the very, very basics of recycling. So the easiest one, the one that everybody can do, is metal cans. Now, what I want you to think about is I want you to think backward on a lot of these things. I want you to think about, what is a metal can made of, and why is it important that we recycle it? Well, of course, it's made from iron ore and coal, which all have to be mined, which is a very environmentally detrimental way of producing materials. And there's more money to be made from mining the materials than making steel cans from old steel cans. But it is one of the most recycled and recyclable materials that's out there. But we really do need to concentrate on what's in these materials so that we know that they're back in the material system and not put in a landfill where they will be forever and ever and ever. So you have your steel cans that are made from iron ore and coal. You have aluminum cans, which is also another very easy one, very highly recycled. That it is made from bauxite, which again is a finite natural resource. Now here's where things get confusing. A lot of times municipalities will say, we will take all plastics number 1 through 7 except number 6. Some even take number 6. So back in the old days, you could recycle number 1s and 2s. Number 1, soda bottles, water bottles, and number 2, milk jugs, laundry jugs, those kinds of things. Those were the only two things you could put in your recycling bin. But now they've broadened that out to so many different kinds of plastics, like the little plastic clamshells that your strawberries come in at the supermarket. Those simply are not recyclable. They're just simply not. They're garbage. But more and more often, these are being included to, for some reason, make it easier on the consumer and make them feel like they're contributing more. But it's just really a bad idea. So if you're recycling, if your city says, oh, you can put in plastic utensils, please don't do any of that. Just stick to the really basic stuff, and our recycling system will remain cleaner and more efficient. Sorry, I didn't mean to stumble over my words there. So the plastics are a huge problem. And a lot of that is because there's so much of it, and we're going to get deeper into that. So plastics, number one, and number two, don't put anything else in your recycling bin except those two. And, no plastic shopping bags at all. No plastic toys, no plastic laundry baskets. You would be amazed at the things that people put in their recycling bins. But if we can stick to the basics that we started out with in the 90s, then this is going to become a better system. So of course you could always do paper and cardboard. Those are also very recyclable. Glass bottles and jars. There's lots of different colors of glass, and there's different kinds of glass. Bottles and jars. Those are the two key words. And the three colors you can recycle are brown, green, and clear. That's it. No blue glass, no red glass, no mirrors, no broken glass. If a window breaks at your house, that does not go in the recycling bin. It goes in a cardboard box where it's taped up and it says glass marked on the outside so that the guys picking up the garbage don't get hurt picking up those items. So, I mean, that's it. We just solved the recycling problem. Just go back to the basics and everything will be cool. The problem is that there's so much of it. So let's talk about that a little bit. Now, this is a great graphic that I found, and I'm so glad that it's kind of moving. It's kind of intriguing. So remember I said to think backward into where our materials come from. They have to be mined out of the earth. They have to be processed. They have to be transported. It's a lot of embodied energy that goes into the things we make. So you could go back to the mining process, and then that has to be transported. It has to be separated, sorted out. It has to be transported again. It has to be made into something. It has to be transported again. And so there's a lot of transportation energy that goes into that. But we could even go back one step further, actually 2 steps further, and the trucks that transport these materials all these times, we could talk about what are the materials that the truck is made out of, and were those materials mined, and the energy that goes into the truck. We could also talk about the energy that goes into the mining equipment, that most of that is steel. So that material had to be mined and processed and formed into steel. So there is a lot of embodied energy that's in your can of soup. So I really hope that gives you incentive, if you weren't already recycling, to make sure that that's recycling. Otherwise, you're taking that can and that finite resource and all of that energy that went into making it, and you're burying it in a hole in the ground forever and ever. And it's really just tragic. And we should not do that anymore at all. So I love, love, love this graphic. So here is, I made this poster when I was at Mountain View a couple of years ago, because we had 25 water hydration stations where students could refill their reusable water bottles or their plastic bottles or whatever, with free to them, clean, chilled drinking water. But we also sold a lot of bottled water. And it made absolutely no sense to me why students were paying $2 for a bottle of water where there were 25 hydration stations in all the buildings all over the campus. So I made this poster, and it's true that it's really amazing that our society has reached a point where the effort necessary to extract oil from the ground, ship it to a refinery, turn it into plastic, shape it appropriately, fill it with tap water. It's not special water, it is tap water. Truck it to a store, drink it, and recycle or just toss it in the trash is considered to be less effort than what it takes to just fill a reusable water bottle with tap water. So it had an effect. People noticed it. People asked me about it, and I hope that it's still resonating now that they've even installed more hydration stations at Mountain View. While we were at home, but this is what we've come to. This is why we have so many plastic bags, plastic shopping bags, plastic utensils, to-go containers, because it is easier to not have to, I don't feel like washing dishes, or let's just eat out and we'll get all this stuff and all of these things that we're going to unwrap this hamburger and throw that in the trash. And that's called a single-use product. And we really need to do our best to simply eliminate all single-use products such as that. And we'll talk about that in the 5 calls to action at the end. So, another problem with recycling is the contamination. And, I said that the 3 through 7s and all that weird stuff like plastic toys, laundry baskets, all of that is considered contamination because it has to be sorted out. It can't be baled and sold. It is baled and taken to the landfill. And that's why recycling keeps increasing in price, is because now we are transporting our garbage twice. We're sending it to the recycling facility and then to the landfill. And it's just crazy that we're doing that. But a lot of this is because of something that has been dubbed in the recycling industry as wish cycling. When you have something in your hand and you say, I wonder if this is recyclable. If you have to ask that, just put it in the trash. Because remember, we're sticking to the basics. So if you have a rubber hose or a string of Christmas lights, batteries, any of these things in your hand, I wonder if these are recyclable. The answer is no. Because most likely, I'm going to say 9 times out of 10, the item that you have in your hand is a contaminant. And it is a problem. And especially if it's something like a plastic bag or a hose, rubber hose. You guys would not believe what is found in these recycling bins. And Christmas lights end up a lot after the Christmas season. But these things are called tanglers, and they mangle up the recycling machinery. They don't mangle it. They stop it. And then they have to shut the whole system down. Somebody has to get in there, clear out those materials, and then they can continue on. So it's just bad. It's just bad. Let's just go back to the basics. I cannot say that enough. Just go back to the basics, and then a lot of these problems will simply go away. So I have a lot of material in here for you. Again, I'm going to tell you that I am going to share all of this with you at the very, very end. But here's our biggest problem. And I know you've heard of this in the news. It is an enormous problem. And there's a lot that we can do about it. But we have to get serious, and we have to get mobilized, and we have to tell companies and the government what we want them to do about it. So up until, I think it was it 2017, that we used to send all of our plastics to, actually all of our recyclables, to China. But if you've listened to what I've said, a lot of our recycling is garbage. A lot of it is. And China warned us and said, stop sending us your garbage. We need you to be better at recycling. We need you to sort your materials better. And if you don't stop sending us your garbage, we're not going to take anything anymore. And we went, yeah. And that's exactly what they did. And it has absolutely thrown our recycling industry into pandemonium, because all of a sudden, the country that took the majority of our materials, including our trash, said no more. We're not going to play this game anymore. So now we send our quote unquote recyclables, which is really also a lot of garbage, which is why it's important we clean it up, to these countries. Of course, China is still listed on here, and a lot of stuff still gets in there. Not as much as before, but it's kind of done under the how is that saying? It's not done legally. That's what I'm trying to say. So now we send it to all these other places. These are developing countries that if we don't have the systems to handle our garbage and our recycling, then these countries absolutely have no way of handling the materials that we are sending them. But they are poorer, and they have fewer choices, and families make their livings off of sorting these materials by hand in very dangerous conditions, very just awful, unhealthy conditions. And I'll show you some images from National Geographic here in a minute. But most of these are developing countries that the people, they have no choice. This is how they're earning a living, is by sorting our garbage. And they deserve better. So it's become such an issue that some countries have said, we're done. Just kind of like China did. They said, we're done. This is a picture of on a dock in Cambodia. We put all of our garbage into these shipping containers, and we ship them all over the world. And Cambodia said, no, we're going to be like China. We don't want your garbage anymore. And so they sent it back. 1,600 tons of trash just right here in this image is what they sent back. So countries are saying, stop sending us your problems. So what can we do? We can clean up our own problems. We cannot make these problems that we are sending all over the world. So in June 2018, National Geographic dedicated an entire issue to the plastic problem, and it has not gotten any better. As a matter of fact, it has gotten worse since this issue came out. But it's really, really amazing. I suggest that you go to the library and take a look at it. You can also order it on back order of a back issue. But it is very, very good. And a lot of what they say really resonates because, yes, we made plastic, and now we depend on it for so many things. And yes, it has revolutionized the healthcare industry. It has also revolutionized the food safety industry. But when you look around your home or the store, when you are shopping, just stop and look at all of the things that are made out of plastic that are really very, very disposable. And so many of them are single use. And think about, why do we do this? Couldn't this be done a better way? And most of those single-use plastics are simply not recyclable. They're just not recyclable at all. They may have the little chasing arrows on it. That does not mean that it's recyclable. That is just the resin number for the plastic industry. We co-opted that as recycling coordinators, and we're very sorry about that. We never should have done that, and I'm sorry. I'm going to apologize for the recycling coordinators all over the world who have done that, because now people see that that recycling symbol and they assume that, well, then of course it's recyclable, and it's not. So that's a fallacy. Just remember, stick to the basics. But now we're drowning in all of these plastics. I mean, if you do stop and look around, we are really, truly drowning in plastics. So just from 1950 to 2015, we went from producing globally really 0 tons of plastics, because it was introduced during World War II. That was when plastics made their debut. And of course, all those industries didn't want to go out of business when the war ended. So they found other uses for their plastics, and we bought into it, hook, line, and sinker. And now, as of 2015, annually, every single year, we produce more than 350 million tons of plastic every single year. And that was 2015. I have not found the newest numbers, but I can assure you, with the pandemic and how you couldn't have things that the public touched or people touched more than once. So we really went toward that single use, which was absolutely appropriate. It was a public health issue, and it still is. But that is, now we're really in trouble with our plastic production, because our company's going to want to dial it back once the pandemic is over. No, they're making a lot of money, and they don't want to stop making a lot of money. So how do we pull them back? This is actually a screenshot of actually off of National Geographic's digital magazine that I have a subscription to. This is a place in China, and it's a trade show where you can go and buy anything you can imagine in the world. And so much of it is made of plastic. Plastic kids' backpacks, plastic fake flowers, toys, plastic buckets and shovels, and it's just crazy, the things that we buy every day that are made out of plastic. So this is called, Yiwu, China is called the world capital of everyday plastic. So what is most plastic used for? Most of it's used for packaging. And, where I had said, like that flexible carton that your strawberries come in, your fruit comes in at the supermarket, that's packaging. Anything like the single serving microwave soup container, that's plastic. We put the little plastic lid on it with the holes, and you put it in the microwave. That is also packaging, and that is a single-use product that once you've eaten that soup, it just goes into the trash. So the majority of the plastic that is produced annually goes into packaging, and most of that packaging is garbage. So it goes into textiles, stain proof carpeting is a lot of times made out of cloth that is made from plastic resin. Transportation, building and construction, electronics, industrial machinery has all these other uses, but the majority of the plastics are single-use packaging. Here's another photo from the National Geographic issue, and this is a facility, and I use that word very, very loosely, where they sort plastic bottles in the Philippines. This is a family that sorts recyclables, and I believe, and I forgot to put this on here, I think that this is Bangladesh. If I go down here, yes, this is Dhaka in Bangladesh. So these families are actually making their livings sorting through our garbage to get out the recyclables so that their family can earn a couple of dollars a day. And this child, you know, they don't go to school a lot of times so that they can help out their families earn a living. So this is what people all over the world are doing because we throw so much away. And not only that, it's not our fault. And I want you to remember that. It is not our fault. It is the manufacturer's fault because they don't want to stop making money. They don't want to scale back their production. They want to keep producing, and they want us to keep buying and buying and buying. And that's what causes these kinds of problems. But we're going to talk about calls to action at the end. So again, this is also in Bangladesh, where they're sorting through plastic bags, and that's what this family is doing. So this is where the plastic production is done globally. It is done in the United States. In 2010, and I do need to update this, this was the latest numbers I could find, 37 million tons per year plastic waste generation, and then China 59 million tons per year in 2010. And the next closest is Brazil at 1185. Again, we're 3 times more than the next closest country in doing that. And most of the plastic that is being mismanaged happens not in the United States, it happens in East Asia. So remember that diagram I showed you with all the developing countries where our garbage goes? So we in China create all of this plastic waste, we ship it around the world, and then who has the most mismanaged plastic by region? It's not us. It's East Asia and the Pacific. It's the developing countries where we are sending our garbage. And so when people see this, they go, well, it's their fault. It's their problem. They did this. No, they didn't. We did this. And we simply have chosen not to deal with it and send it around the world for these other countries to deal with it and bear the brunt. So here's a picture. And I wish I could make it bigger. It's just not, I just could not get it at a very good resolution. But when I share this with you, you'll be able to look at it more closely. But these pink regions here are the garbage patches that you hear so much about in the news. This is the big one in the Pacific. There's one in the Atlantic, one down here off of between South America and Africa. There's another little one out here. These are where plastics are accumulating in our world's oceans. But I also want you to see these little yellow markers that show kind of like a pushing out? That is where plastics are actually entering the world's oceans. So when we go back here and we look at Who generates the most plastic waste? China and the United States. And then we look at this. Do you see any of those little yellow markers coming out of the continental United States? No. It is coming out of the places where we send our garbage to the Asian and South Asian and African countries, the developing countries. So that's where the metal meets the road. That's where we can prove our case that we're generating it, but other countries, it is entering the ocean from other countries because they simply do not have the systems to manage the garbage that we are sending to them. So there's a lot more information in here, but those are the two things that I really wanted you to be able to see. And again, you'll be able to see this closer. So again, the garbage patch, all the plastic and particles that are in the world's oceans. So this was really, really amazing to me that globally there is almost 269 million tons in mass of plastic in the oceans. And, this is gathered by statisticians. But most of this plastic is not stuff that you can just see. Because I remember when I first heard about the garbage patch, I went to Google Earth and I zoomed out into the Pacific Ocean. I was searching and searching and searching to see this garbage patch. Well, most of it is plastics that have broken down and they're under the surface. And that's why so many of the of aquatic life think it's food. So most of the plastics are, or a huge majority of the plastic is microplastics. So there's large and there's small. And what happens is animal life, aquatic life eat these, and then they're caught, and then it ends up into our food system. So I want you to just think about that on your own, on what that looks like when these fish eat the microplastics and then we eat the fish. So think about that. But it's really amazing statistics. And then how does the plastic, this is a really great graphic on how does the plastic enter the world's oceans, from production, from waste, to coastal plastic waste, to mismanaged coastal plastic, and then it just gets put into the ocean. So just really, really excellent graphic that shows that linear path. So this is one of my most favorite images. And you hear people say, well, it's just one plastic bottle. Well, when you buy it by the case, and you take it to your kid's soccer team, and there are no recycling bins at the soccer fields, there's just a bunch of trash cans, and all of those plastic bottles go into the trash cans, and the trash cans overflow, and then the wind blows the bottles out, and those go into the storm drain, and those go into the nearest stream, and then it goes to the river, and then it goes to the Trinity, and then it flows down to the Gulf of Mexico, and there it is. It's in the ocean. And now, it's not that quick, but that's what happens. And I just love this because those people who say it's just one plastic bottle said 7 billion people. So that's really profound, and I really like that. And this should be showing us a map, and I guess it's just taking a second to populate, or it's just my bandwidth. I'm losing some bandwidth. What this should be showing you is that there are disparities in the curbside recycling program in Dallas. And again, when I share this with you, you'll be able to play with this. But what this should be showing you is that southern Dallas, they are less likely to recycle. And most of that, I'm gonna be a sociologist for a second and say that when you are trying to feed your family, when you are trying to, you're working 2 minimum wage jobs, your car is broken down, just when life gets in the way, and it's just layers upon layers upon layers of systemic problems, the last thing you care about is recycling. And I get that. So how do we improve that situation all across the board? So when I share this with you, you'll be able to play with that. So I want to share with you, and I am so glad to introduce David Attenborough to a couple of my colleagues who had never heard of him before. Please, he is the most amazing man, and everything he touches is absolutely beautiful. He did a series a couple of years ago called Blue Planet 2. He does a lot of series, a lot of them are on Netflix. But the last episode of Blue Planet 2 talked about plastic pollution. And of course, I could not get the clip on YouTube, but I was able to get this last clip that was available as a promo.
We are at a unique stage in our history. Never before have we had such an awareness of what we are doing to the planet. And never before have we had the power to do something about that. Surely we have a responsibility to care for our blue planet. The future of humanity, and indeed all life on Earth, now depends on us.
So I highly recommend, if you've not seen any of these, please, especially the Blue Planet 2. The last episode talks a lot about plastic pollution and albatrosses, and it's very, very beautiful, very amazing. I also have this video that I'm not going to play, but there is Annie Leonard, several years ago, started an organization called thestoryofstuff.org. And she actually wrote a book that is very, very good. This is kind of the next iteration that she did. She did lots of videos, the story of plastic bags, the story of cosmetics. There's like probably 8 or 9 in her series. You can find them on YouTube. But this is the story of bottled water. And it just talks about that whole, embodied energy to mining the natural gas and the crude oil to make plastic, and all the steps it goes through. It's kind of it's that poster that I showed you, but in video form, and it is very, very good. And I really recommend that you watch The Story of Stuff, which is the original one that talks about the linear progression of our waste system, the take out of the ground, the make into products, and then waste it when you throw it away, and how we need to turn that into a circular system. So now let's get into that. Oh, and there's that. I told you I like that graphic. So 5 calls to action. So here you go. Here are things that you could do to solve some of these problems. The first one is, of course, to stop buying single-use plastics. Cups, bags, to-go containers, bottled water, especially cutlery plates. Stop buying single-use plastics. Number 2, petition governments. That last episode of Blue Planet 2, when it was shown in the UK, of course, Sir David Attenborough is British, it actually launched the British Parliament into banning a lot of single-use plastics. The Queen Elizabeth II, commented on it. It was a really big deal in the UK. Unfortunately, one of the things that was very important to them, and it made the rounds here too, was straws. And I'm sorry, guys, straws are not the problem. They're simply not. It's adorable that people want to feel like they're making a difference by not using straws. But that is just so minute. This is not even scratching the surface. There's so much more that we need to do. There truly, truly is. So we need to actually ban plastic cups and plastic to-go containers, especially styrofoam, the polystyrene styrofoam. They just need to simply be banned. They do. We need to place a deposit on all plastics. Some states do have deposits. I know Michigan's one of them. I think Vermont's another one, but I know Michigan is. Everybody should have that. Everybody should have that, and that would encourage people to recycle. And it should be a requirement that bulk dispensers are in stores to reduce packaging. And you should be able to bring your own containers and not use one of their flexible plastic ones that is just garbage. You should be able to bring your own containers to put those bulk materials in. Now we're going to get into some of my favorites. We should make businesses be responsible for the products that they manufacture. So right now, Coca-Cola manufactures billions of bottles a day. Whether it's packaging their soft drinks, Coke, Sprite, it's also bottled water. So it's a lot globally of plastic bottles. And they have no responsibility for that. So those enter the waste stream, they enter the oceans, they are contaminants, they're environmentally unsafe. It's just horrible, just horrible. They have absolutely no responsibility for those. And until they do, they will continue to mass produce those and make us responsible to pay for the cleanups and the recycling and the shipping of those all over the world, and all the societal impacts and the environmental impacts and the economic impacts of that. They are in the business of making money. They are not in the business of managing the things that they make. So extended producer responsibility is very, very important. And I think that Vermont just passed a couple of laws on extended producer responsibility. And, that should also go for things that have a lot of chemicals in it. Your TVs, so often those go to the landfill, but they're filled with, of course, they're made, a large part of it's plastic, but they're filled with rare earth minerals that are really, really finite resources. And those should never, ever, ever go to the landfill. Nothing electronic should ever go to a landfill. Those companies who manufacturers should be responsible for taking those back. And something magic's going to happen when they are required to take those back. They're going to make their products more recyclable, compostable, and reusable. And that is exactly because right now, they got nothing to worry about. Hands off, we're done. We don't ever have to touch this but once, and it is no longer our problem. But if we made it their problem, once they manufactured that they had to take it back, I promise you things would change. It would be amazing how quickly we would see a reduction in the amount of things that are manufactured that are environmentally unsafe and toxic and just a whole bunch of junk if they had to take it back. So that is number 3. Number 4, beware of greenwashing campaigns. And this actually happened just this summer. Coca-Cola, that I mentioned earlier, have joined forces with an organization called the Ocean Cleanup. I believe it's based out of the UK. And they are funding the cleaning up of plastic waste in rivers. Now, that is the definition of irony, because rather than reducing the amount of plastics that they put into the waste system every single day, they're taking some of those profits and just doing a little bit of, ooh, look at what we're doing on the end. We're going to help clean up a river. And so much of that is material that they created that is now in those rivers. So do not give these companies kudos when they do things like this. Do not give them a pat on the back. Call them out. Say, this is so utterly ridiculous that you think you should get credit for doing something like this for a problem that you helped create. So I want you to get ornery about it, and I want you to call them out. And this is actually in the Philippines. This is one of the countries, one of the developing countries where we send a lot of our garbage, a lot of our plastic waste. And this is an urban river flowing through the middle of the Philippines. And yes, people are living in these. These are the slums of the Philippines, and this is the environment that they live in. So I just grabbed a couple of paragraphs out of the press release off of Coca-Cola's website, and it's just very, very ironic if you read this last sentence, that this partnership aims to engage and mobilize both industry and individuals around the world to address plastic pollution, eliminating plastic waste entering the world's ocean, and supporting ecosystems, species, and water resources. And it's all a bunch of hooey. All of it. So get mad. I was so irate when I read this. So I want you to be irate too, and I want you to do something about it. So that was number 4. Number 5, support a circular economy. Okay, now, I'm going to warn you right now that this whole circular economy discussion is a whole nother presentation. It is a whole nother rabbit hole, and it is fabulous. So this has been around for many years, this discussion of a circular economy. It's exactly what I said before, with companies had to take things back, but this is doing it from the very beginning, where when you design something from the very beginning, you design out the waste and the pollution. And you keep the products and the materials in use. Remember I said that they would make things more recyclable, reusable, and compostable? That's that second part. And then it would help regenerate natural systems. And this is developed, this campaign is developed by an organization called the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And I really highly recommend that you go to their website. It's ellenmacarthurfoundation.org. They are based out of the UK, and it is amazing. All of the things, the case studies, just all of the work that they've put into spreading the word and helping companies do these things. They've got a lot of higher ed materials, a lot of K through 12 materials, and I've actually built a hub for use by Dallas College faculty in the classroom that I will be adding a lot of these resources to. But for right now, it's really just an education hub. But it is based on this butterfly image of the what the manufacturing process could be. So the left side is the renewables flow management, where things are more compostable and you're taking things back to nature. And then the right side is the stock management side, where you're dealing with finite materials, where you're going to maintain and prolong the use of things instead of having single use, reuse and redistribute, refurbish and remanufacture, and then recycle. Do all of these other things first before recycling when it's truly at its end of life. Not like a soup can that, can be recycled and should never be thrown into a landfill. So again, the name of this organization is the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. I have a link to their site and also a link to our hub that I will be making bigger, growing here very soon. So those are the 5 things. They're huge. Some of them you can get started on today. Some of them you're probably already doing. But these other things, we really need to get to work. And we need to teach our children that these are the things that that are very, very important to their future. I mean, this is, and all of this contributes to climate change, the mining of the natural gas, the crude oil, fossil fuels, all of that. It's all connected. And for our children's future and our grandchildren's future, we really need to move on these things. And here I just wanted to show you just really briefly what this hub looks like. I have some conference recordings that were done by, they have a circular economy conference every summer. It's called Circularity. And these are really good. And they've got lots and lots of videos on their YouTube channel. So lots of cool stuff. I have thrown a whole bunch of information at you. I am always a fire hose, and I'm not going to apologize for it because I love doing it. And so now I'm ready for your questions. So lay it on me. What have we got? What kind of questions do we have, Faye?
Thank you so much, Lori. And before we go into the questions, I just have to say that was such an impressive, profound presentation, I hope for everyone, but for me personally too. I know whenever I go to recycle something, I'm always questioning, okay, is this recyclable or not? And a lot of the times, it gets overwhelming, and so you just give up and throw everything in the trash. So, so I think just going back to the basics, like what you just did, is very helpful. I know for me, and hopefully for everyone else too. So it looks like we've got time for just 1 or 2 questions.
Sure.
The first one would be, so why don't we burn waste? And is there a way to turn waste into energy by burning it?
No! Okay, so burning causes a lot of problems. There are places that do waste to energy. Florida is one of those places. I visited a waste to energy plant. Like I said, my background is in garbage. And a lot of that is because, their water table is so high, they really can't have landfills in Florida. So they do pull out their recyclables through the sorting process, and then they burn everything else. The problem with that is that there's a lot of toxics in our garbage. Plastic laundry containers. Did you ever, as a kid, try to melt a balloon? Did you ever light a balloon on fire? Okay, I just was weird growing up. We did these things. And it's just very noxious, and it is very toxic, and probably explains a lot. But that's why we can't burn our garbage, is because there's just a lot of toxins. And yes, you can put scrubbers on the stacks, which has been mandated by the EPA. But the developing countries that, they still burn, they don't have any of those regulations. So the sooner we can get toxins out of our waste stream and develop better systems, things will improve. But we don't burn we do not burn garbage in Texas at all. We simply don't.
Faye, can I squeeze a question in?
Absolutely, yes.
So I always have to test the boundaries. I know you say just recycle the 1s and 2s, but some of my strawberry plastic containers say they're recyclable. on the bottom. So are you saying, okay, all right.
We covered this. So remember, somebody put in the chat, educate Georgianne and tell her what we talked about that recycling symbol. Can anybody put that in the chat? I did put the link to this presentation in the chat, but just because it has that symbol is the type of resin with the number in it, and it's typically a 6, those little flexible strawberry containers. That means they're polystyrene, and they are absolutely not recyclable in Texas. They are simply not. There is not a market for polystyrene, and all of those things end up in the garbage. So those symbols were developed by the industry to just tell each other what the resin was that this product was made out of. Us educators, recycling educators and recycling coordinators, we co-opted that because it made it very easy for us to do our jobs, to tell people only recycle things that were 1s and 2s. But now it became so popular that everybody who sees that symbol assumes, oh, well, it's got the symbol on it. Well, so do the plastic bags. And so do all these other, products that simply have no place in the recycling bin. So it's a fallacy. And I apologize on behalf of recycling coordinators all over the United States that we're very sorry we did that. So there's my mea culpa. Sorry.
So we have in the chat, Nancy's just asking for the picture of the recyclable items, which you did put the presentation in there. But if you wouldn't mind giving us just a quick reminder of what should go in the recycling bin or not.
Yes, let me share my screen again. Let me, was this one? Okay, it's up here at the top. It's the very beginning of the presentation. So it is steel cans, aluminum cans, plastics 1 and 2, and they have to be rigid containers. So they can't be like those cartons. They have to be rigid containers that had a lid on it is really the best test. Paper and cardboard. So, and that even includes paperboard. So like, cereal boxes, tissue boxes, toothpaste boxes, anything like that. And then glass bottles and jars only, and only 3 colors, clear, green, and brown. And you remember, back in the old days, you had to scrape the label off of it. You have to do any of that anymore. You don't have to take the label off of the soup cans, nothing like that anymore. Just make sure they're clean. Just rinse them out before you put them in your recycling bin.
Thank you so much, Lori. Well, that's all the time we have today. Everyone, please fill out the evaluation form, and please save the link in the chat to this presentation, and make sure to register for our next Sustainable You on Tuesday. And so we're going to go ahead and end the presentation.